know, I'm Holly Hughes. I'm an intuitive healer and an author and speaker. And Shannon, my friend here, this beautiful woman, we've known each other for about a year and a half. She started off as a client, but every time we get together, we can't stop talking. And we always say, we should really record that. So today we're going to, and we're going to try to only make it a short snippet so you don't have to listen to us go on and on. We are firm believers of being authentic and firm believers of no bullshit, really, right? She is in the corporate world. I should say that too. So she knows how to speak a language that is completely foreign to me. And yet how she articulates and lights up the world, I know is her gift. And I know you'll be seeing a lot of her because I know she'll be on stages soon enough, inspiring other people because she's a fucking badass. And that's all there is to it. Do you want to say anything about yourself?
Not really. I'm just excited to have the conversation. You know, as you mentioned, we always have really thoughtful, intentional conversations that can go in any direction. And it's funny because even when we were thinking about what we talk about today, I think my mind has shifted since our text maybe a half an hour ago. Especially as we're thinking about authenticity. I think that's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, but we also recognize, you know, when you're out in the world, it's not always easy to show up for yourself authentically. And so I'm just excited to have the conversation as usual.
Okay, everyone. This is what we're doing. We are going to be discussing Jada and Will. Now, this is like a super interesting topic for me for many reasons. One is, in case people don't know, I worked in LA in film and television for 18 years. I know, even though I've been out of it for over a decade, there are so many things that people know about each other that aren't in public for their consumption. When I was out there, it was prior to social media. So a lot of secrets were kept. I shared my story 2 years before Me Too about all of the horrible things and sexual harassment that happens. That is pretty much the normal out there, and people just put up with it. I was a huge fan of Will, honestly, as like his acting and what he did. And what I know about people who worked with him on set, he was quite professional and he took no bullshit. He really didn't take tomfoolery around him. I never heard anything about Jada so much, but I really respected the red table. I really liked those conversations. And even though Gammy scares me, and she scares me just because she's a recovering addict, right? And her worldview is very shaped by the era she grew up in and the prejudice that she faced. And that cocktail, because of my background, is very, it makes me cautious of her. Like I'd want to win her over, right? And I'm just in love with Willow. I think Willow can save the world. I really do. I like her music or whatever. But her new Jada's bombshell and everything that happened at the Oscars reeks of stink to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so like Willow is a whole different topic because, you know, we are so much a function of the environment we grow up in, right? And so her ability to save the world probably has a ton to do with the things that she's seen that the rest of us haven't, the things that she knows that the rest of us don't know. So yes, I like my first reaction, it was exactly the same. I'm like, well, this is just BS. Like, or you know how I would normally say that if we were in the
We
office.
can say it because I don't care.
Like this is
Real, not perfect, real.
exactly. So I guess my challenge with the whole thing is, you know, with the red table talk and with other things that Jada has done, she is constantly presenting as being, you know, putting everything out there and putting her life out in the spotlight and being authentic and encouraging other people to do the same. And, you know, I recognize there's an aspect of when you separate from someone, wanting to figure out what that looks like for you and for your family and needing privacy in that. But 7 years.
Snap. I'm like, 7 years? No. I think the other interesting thing is you can have a private life. I know that's really hard for celebrities, but I think you deserve it, right? There's a reason why I would never do an event with my husband. It wouldn't work. Like you need some separation of church and state. I think the thing for me is that they showed up at the table as a couple who have gone through therapy and were working on it. One of the things we heard in LA, remember, decades ago, so before they separated, is that they were in an open relationship and they were both bi. That was the very a lot of talk around town, right? Which is
Right.
like, who
Right.
cares? Like,
Right.
honestly,
Especially in LA, like
that's an alleged. Okay. So no one write like anything stupid, right? But those were the rumors in town. So my thing is, and I still keep going back to, for me, the Oscar slap. So here you are presenting yourself as a woman who's in the cutting edge of helping other women, helping bring these difficult topics to light and being authentic and sharing and getting deep while maintaining a private life. But no, 7 years of that, no. You could have just been like, we have lived separate lives. I think they alluded to it often, but that means he didn't need to come to the table. And I don't think she needed the PR of him sitting at the table. But that slap there. So she's saying, if I read it right, because I didn't get an arc of the book and I haven't read it, and I honestly don't want to give her my money now. But
right.
I don't. But my thing is, so he hit on her and Will didn't like that? You haven't touched the woman in a decade. What are you talking about?
Right. Well, the other thing like that comes up for me with this is I I don't know if it's like, oh, you were trying to maintain a private life. I truly believe, and this is just my belief, is that it was beneficial to her from a business perspective. In some regard, it's beneficial to both of them to stay outwardly in that relationship. But I think she had more to benefit from a brand perspective than he did. To be her being affiliated with him was more impactful to her from a financial perspective, from a business perspective, from a brand perspective, than him being affiliated with her. And so it, to me, it behooved her to maintain the idea of the being in a relationship together. It behooved her when she's marketing Red Table Talk and, you know, to your point, uplifting women, being transparent, being authentic, for them to bring that relationship to the forefront on that show. It was, to me, it was almost like this was a business decision in my eyes. It wasn't a personal decision, a privacy decision. I think it was a business decision. And it's striking because I just, again, I feel like she benefited more than he did. And I don't know many men who would allow themselves to be emasculated in many ways over and over again.
How do you think she emasculated him?
I think the things that came out about her and other people, and him coming to the table and talking about the fact that she was doing all these things and he kind of knew, and crying on stage in a way. And, you know, there's an element
I find that fascinating. I don't find that emasculating.
I don't know.
And now I know it's an act.
Also,
they're actors.
They are actors. I also think that the Grammy slap, I think people lost a ton of respect for him. And if I were him, I would be embarrassed by the fact that we're kind of putting on this facade and I'm the only one who seems to be publicly losing from it. Like, she's publicly benefiting from it in many ways. He seemed to be publicly losing from a lot of the actions that were happening.
I like that perspective. I think she was the one who's been working again. I think my perspective of is that she really did raise family for a while. And so she wasn't acting as much because those are grueling hours. Working on a set is a minimum of a 12-hour day. For the crew, the cast is usually different, but hair and makeup for hours, and then you're on set, yada, yada, yada. I think I still don't understand the slap. There's nothing that you can tell me that, oh, it's the Oscars. I know for anyone else it gets annoying, not the Grammys. So it's the world stage. You're on the Oscars and you're going to have a mantrum. He had a mantrum.
Yeah, totally.
And like and there's been plenty of jokes that are in poor taste or things that like went over, you know, like a fart in an elevator, honestly, that have happened. I cannot understand why he would get his ass up, walk across and like do that. He really hit him. Everyone was like, is that fake? Is that real? Like, and now,
like how to go like a distance to do it.
Right.
It wasn't like they were sitting next to each other or he was standing in front of him. Like, had time for it to build, and I don't know. So this is my other challenge with this though, is I'm saying a lot about like, oh, she's doing this for her brand. She's the one who's benefited. And so then I think about like when you were just introducing me and saying I'm in a corporate space, and you and I have recently had a conversation about authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
how we show up in spaces. And I often joke with you about putting on my corporate avatar.
Yeah.
Um, and there's an extreme lack of authenticity with that. And so how do we navigate authenticity when we are trying to accomplish certain goals in certain spaces and be real and, you know, be true to ourselves? Like it's hard to achieve certain things in historic structures and be
Mm.
authentic to yourself at the same time. And so there's part of me who's extremely upset with her. But if she did this for the reasons I believe she did it, there's part of me who also gets it, right? Like you go out into the world and you do what you have to do to get to the place or accomplish the goal that you have to accomplish in a world that is not necessarily set up for people like you and I.
Oh,
All
I
the
have so many questions about that. So, two things. I think authenticity and professionalism go hand in hand. Like,
hmm
you can't be your relaxed self, right, in professional situations. You don't want your doctor coming in the office, like looking like a slob if they're a slob at home. There is professionalism. And so that might be kind of a mask, but you should still be who you are while you're in a professional setting, right? Like, I think people like struggle with that a little bit, right?
Yeah,
And if you
sure.
find yourself working for a place where you can't speak up and your thoughts and actions and work are not appreciated, then you're in the not a great place, and I highly recommend you like moving. My question is, what is her goal? Right? They have
Right.
money. They have money, money, money. So it's not a money thing. I think their house, I'm making it up, 10,000 square feet. So I could live in 5,000 square feet all by myself doing whatever, right? Like, I don't like none of that. Like, it's their business, I guess is my thing. Like, that's your business. I don't really care. But now you keep making it my business by dropping these situations or entanglements or whatever.
You want to
And that,
monetize off of it. Well,
how
actually,
much money do you
I don't
need?
know. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if
How
it's
much do you need to
monetized.
be seen? What
I
is your
don't
goal?
want to monetize it maybe financially, but she might want the power and the visibility. Like that's another thing, right? Think about being the partner of someone who's so big,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you have had your own career in that space, right? And to your point, where you took time away to parent, think about the toll that that takes when you kind of come into something as two who weren't like totally equal, but she had her own things going on. She had her own lane, she had her own work, she had her own career that she was
Mm-hmm.
growing and thriving in. And then for any number of reasons, he grew much bigger than her, right? And so how much of it could just be like I need something of my own, I need the spotlight too, and I can leverage you to get that.
I love that. Well, especially in LA. So I always count married years in LA in dog years because the amount of temptation. There's like, if 100 people hit on you every day, I don't know what human at one point won't give in a little bit.
Right.
And you have to, and the average set has about 250 people on it. All sorts of tomfoolery happens on the set, right? Like
Right.
to be faithful is a big deal. I also think that same question can be related to any woman who decides to
Yeah.
stay home and parent, because parenting of little kids, you kind of get invisible because their needs become so important and you lose yourself. If you have not individuated or handled your trauma or whatever it is that you grew up and you don't want to repeat and that your parents taught you that really doesn't fit you, you are going to do that in your marriage and relationship and you might lose yourself. I totally get it. The snippets that I always hear about this ego-filled party that he threw her for her 37th birthday, and like she was done with him at that point. And so for me, it was always about him. So
Yes.
maybe turnabout is fair play for her now.
And not just about him and the children, because not only did she care for these children, but they've grown their own careers, right? And are in the spotlight as well and have a lot going on for themselves. And so really in that household, there became a point of time where, she was a working actor and a partner of a working actor. And now she's the mom to three working entertainers.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's the mother, she's not the actress Jada Pinkett, she's the mother Jada Pinkett. And so at some point, I'm sure.
Oh, you already dropped the Smith. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought it was unintentional.
That was good.
Totally,
That was
I don't
good.
know that I ever added the Smith though, personally. I've always
Yeah.
kind of viewed her as Jada Pinkett.
Yeah, I think I wish I would see her in different roles actually. I like for me, I would because now when I see her intention on the screen when she was doing Red Table, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there is much more depth to her. I think that's part of what annoys me. I see depth to you in a way, right? That you can have these conversations and you could pull out these emotional truths, which is at the heart of acting, right? You have to make a truth and a reality out of the script. And I'm sure, I think she was in Batman or something for whatever for a while, right? And all of those might have been fun, but I'm curious like where she would want to go creatively and now who wants to touch her. Is the drama a draw, right? Is that more money or not? Is that going to get her what she wants? I want to I want to text her.
I mean, I
Hey,
think she
what do
should
you
go.
want?
You're saying something really interesting here, though, like who would want to touch her. I think she could be an incredible producer. And I think, and she has the means to do it, certainly. And the other thing, like, again, this is frustrating for me, not even really because she kept a secret, but to all of the points we've made, she was someone who, like, we're in this space of time and in the world where we're breaking down norms, or we're saying, like, these traditional norms don't have to exist, or we don't have to live within them. And so she's, to a degree, been at the forefront of that in her personal life, whether she wanted it to be public or not, but also in terms of the conversations and the people she brings to the table, helping the world think bigger, for whether it's about relationships or career or mental health or
Mm.
trauma, all of those things. And so, like, she has really awesome stories to tell, and it's frustrating that she just hasn't been telling her own.
Yeah, or she doesn't ever have to tell her own, and she can find stories similar to hers to bring light to it. I like let's look
But
at her
don't lie to
kid.
us along the way. You don't have to. You don't have
You
to
don't
tell
have to tell me,
your
but you
own.
don't
But
have
just
to.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
you'd be like, you know what? Hey, I know you got everyone's curious, but we're not going to go there. But I'm going to from what we've learned, I'm going to find more stories to share this way. I think that is her gift. I think, look at what part of what I love about Willow, besides her talent, is she is like, yeah, I'm all about polyamory. I wonder where she got that from, right? Or her
right.
brother,
That's what I'm
he
saying.
just he very much dresses, he wears dresses, he like mixes up his fashion and style and how he presents, right? He plays with that, which is having, because I have to say, privilege, money, LA, superpower in California, and access to all of it, and
Yeah, but
access to not getting really, they might get ridiculed, but I don't know that they're ever in danger for expressing themselves.
and I think it's actually, so maybe a better thing for us is maybe she's fulfilled her purpose, like, through her children. And I don't
Mm.
know if that's how she wants to be identified, but when you think about that, when you think about how freely her children live in very public spaces, and not to
Hmm.
mention, like, they are Black children doing that, um no, despite their privilege to do that, they are still, like, they are representation out the wazoo. And that's important too, right?
For
Like,
sure.
you talk about Willow has the capacity to change the world. Maybe that's Jada's purpose. Maybe it was just that, and we leave her alone for, keeping something quiet. But I do think she has so much great work in her. And
I
yeah,
just wish this is what I want to ask Jade. I'm like, I want you to keep going, but could you not do it like this? I think you're smarter than that. We all have a bad day, but this is the other thing. That book is like, whoever helped you write it, because we all know, even if it was just an editor, that means if a book is published now, traditional publishing, it takes 2 years to get a book from being written to getting a publishing date. If it's a fast publishing date, then it's about 9 months to a year. So that means that this book has been in the works since the Red Table Talk was at its height,
yeah, yeah.
right? And it took this long. And then what do we need to do to
So
draw
how does
attention
that
to it?
line up with the Oscars though? It's about the Oscars time frame. And I
Yeah,
think
no, that's in February.
but the Oscars, this was not 2023. It was 2022 Oscars, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a year and a half, they've got money. They can. I can move that. I think what just annoys
But
me.
the money doesn't, that doesn't, I mean, it's name in traditional publishing, because I know too
Yeah.
much about that. It really isn't about that, right? Like, I bet a publisher might have approached them and given them an interesting deal about it. I'm going to assume,
Yeah.
I'd be curious about the rights that she owns,
And she
international
also
rights, yada,
had
all
some
that.
drama around her with the entanglement prior to that. I guess what is irritating to me
Stupidest
is
word.
when people, and she's not the only one. This happens all the time, and I've seen it a lot recently. When people are just like, "Hey, I've got this platform and I'm sharing my story." And then all of a sudden you find out they weren't really sharing their story because there's a book to be had. Like it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
there's some disingenuousness to it. I kind of felt that way about Prince Harry. It's like, dude, you've had a platform for your entire life. You've
Mm-hmm.
said these things your entire life. Why now? And I guess for him, he had to leave the monarchy too. But I just feel like there are lots of people who have always had an audience, always had a platform, but they didn't want to share anything with us until they put it in a book that they want us to go buy.
Yeah. And again, books, a regular author, if a book is $20, the hardcover, they get $2. A traditional author regularly only gets that much. You get an advance for a mid-list author, which is a person not typically not on the New York Times bestseller list, gets approximately $30,000 to $80,000. That's spread over 3 years. And then
Oh,
they get $2 a book, and then royalties, and their agent gets some. So regular authors don't make. It's these celebrities who fuel or can kind of help pay for them. But I think it's the price of business. I think personally, this is part of one of my, I don't understand how business works. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, because, right, like, here I am wanting to help people. I have certain gifts and I can do it. And I help bring people to their authentic selves, help heal all that stuff. I have a book, whatever. But I think it's like when people ask me to come and like engage with them, if I feel like it's 100% sales, I can't do it. I
yeah.
can't bring myself to do it because it feels like a bunch of bullshit. But sometimes the only way to meet someone where they are or find them is to go in those spaces. How do you handle that?
Oh, I mean,
You tell me and then help me with that, because you're right. But like, that is part of my question. So that's part of me like being curious about Jada. But I'm like, if you don't need more, but you like creating, right? I'm still a writer. I have 3 books in drafts in my computer. Like, and I just haven't had the time to kind of go back. if
oh,
if you have the time and the capacity and the people and the machine around you, because she has a machine
right.
of employees, of everything. Her children are adults,
Maybe
right? So
that's it
it's
though.
different.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe something else is coming, right? Like I think even to your point, like books, celebrities are going to make more on their books, but it's still not like a game changer. And it's not when they already have a lot of wealth, then whatever. But we also find a book drops and then there's something else, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
documentary or there's some other project that this book was like the teaser for, like getting our energy. And so part
Mm-hmm.
of that is, maybe there's something more that's coming for her. The challenging thing though with celebrity too is like, to a degree, you could argue their currency is their inauthenticity, right? Like
Mm.
they're in a constant state of having to put themselves in spaces and places to remain relevant, whether it is authentic to them or not. And it's frustrating for us as regular people because like they could go sell, like they could put their name on chapstick and it would cost $20 instead
Yep.
of or $1. But there's also a level of inauthenticity that exists with that. Like I would never want to be a celebrity because I think
Mm.
the rate at which you have to come outside of yourself to sustain that celebrity is probably much greater than a lot of us.
What just came to my mind is I was working on a movie. It was called Lush Life. And it was with Forrest Whitaker and Jeff Goldblum. Like, those were the two, and Kathy Baker. I think
Eighth.
that's her. No, not Bates, Baker. She was like in pick up. You would know her if you looked her up. And I'm sorry if I get it wrong. If I get it wrong, I'll put a note underneath. But anyway, I was just a production assistant. I was pretty new in LA, and my job was to drive Jeff Goldblum. And there was no such thing as Google. Like, there was no Google. Like, you had a book that was this big. It was And it was the
Thing called a map and
yeah, it was a map. In the LA, it was massive. And I had to go somewhere I'd never been. Jeff lived in the Hollywood Hills. He was with Laura Dern at the time. His ex-wife, Gina Davis, has the same birthday as me. So anyway, these are all the things I know. And I met him, and he would touch every fucking button in my car. And he was like, whatever. And I got lost, and he tried to get me fired because I got lost. And I was like, you're still on time, but whatever. I have so many stories. He recognized me decades later. He's like, I know you. I'm like, yeah, I used to drive you. He's like, great to see you. I was like, this man's brain is outstanding. But my story is about Forrest. This is what I want to talk about fame. Back in the day, in like, I like to use myself as a reference, right? So like early time, maybe I was 23. Yeah. I was driving Forrest Whitaker home after it was like really late, and he's very shy, very introverted. And I really respected that he didn't want to talk. Like, no problem. Like, I don't have it in me. We've just been on set for 14 hours, right?
Right.
So we're going home, and I'm really quiet. And then he just like looks at me because I guess I don't kiss ass. Shocking, right? So he's like,
That's why we get along so
so
well.
we start talking about weight. I don't know how the conversation started about, like how big you could be. And I think at the time I was like a size 8, which was humongous in LA. I was fat. And we were kind of talking about that because people used to like talk to him about that. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And he's like, so like, what's your dream? What's your dream? And I was like, oh my God, he's asking me my dream, and I have to make sure I don't get lost. Right. So I was like, honestly, this is like I have a 2-part dream. Back in the day, I wanted to be a film producer. And my dream was to roll up to the Oscars in an open air Jeep with my hair messed up, but in a fucking gown, right? Like I just wanted to be all done, but like still totally me. I would totally still do that, right? And show up and be like, yeah, we did that, because producers usually end up in the back and they're not as glam squatted as everybody else. I said, he's like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. And then I was like, yeah, I go, the other part of my dream is this. Does anyone remember the National Enquirer growing up? Is before the internet again, right? And it used to have horrible stories about most people, but every now
Yeah.
and again, it would have stories about aliens, right? And so I was like, yeah, I said, I really want a story about me in the National Enquirer about having an alien baby. And he like guffawed at me, right? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, because then I know that something I did had an impact because they noticed me and I did
Right,
something
right,
good. And having
right,
an alien baby doesn't hurt anyone. It
right,
doesn't
right.
hurt anyone in the world. We're not spitting a story that's mean or
Doesn't
cruel about
impact your
anybody
family or
else.
anybody else's.
Yeah. And then he just kind of like looked at me, and I think we were at his house by then. He's like, well, thank you. And he like got like, he was like, peace out. But I thought that was like always like my thing. And when I think about celebrity and the internet and having authentic stuff, like I am me here. Am I sassier with my friends, a little more obnoxious? Probably 100% I am, right? Am I more introverted when I'm not online? 100%, right? Like you can have aspects of your personality and you don't have to share it all. But I think hiding, and I don't think it's 7 years, I think it's 10, that they were not actually like a couple.
Right.
Like they could just be like, we live separate lives, full stop. Like,
Nope.
none of your
Unless
business.
you're
The
on
rest is
there
none of your
doing
business.
anniversary tweets or posts or whatever their things are called.
Making everyone
The
feel bad about
whole
themselves.
charade. Right, right. Like the rest of us, I mean, I'm not married, so that's a whole separate, situation, but making all of these people in these loveless marriages feel like shit because they're on, because they're perfect. They're rich and they're beautiful and they're perfect, right?
They are beautiful. They both really are. I mean, that's a pretty good looking family right there. Yeah, I want to know. I haven't seen her interviews because I guess I don't really care to, because I feel like for me, an end game with people is lying.
Yeah.
I don't like liars. You don't have, and withholding information on a personal level is a lie.
For 10 years, for sure.
For 10
Like
years,
I said, I understand when people get separated, you need some time to sort that out. But 10 years it's a whole different situation. It's a
I
whole different
know.
situation.
I wonder, like, what's the shame and guilt in that? Is there shame and guilt? Is there like, we made a promise, so you made a promise? Like, because they made a big deal about it, it becomes a big deal.
Right. That's right. Had their relationship not been in the forefront and in our face so much over the last 5 or maybe longer, then, and like, not just because the paparazzi have done that or because the
Mm-hmm.
media have done that, because they have done that as well. Then I don't think we wouldn't be so worked up about it, but also, and we wouldn't be talking about it, but also there'd be nothing to write about.
Yeah. How about they just said they like chose, because we have the ability to co-parent the way we're choosing to, we're living our lives and we're in this relationship to co-parent. That's a, I mean, there's so many people who get divorced, right? How many, like, and they have children. So that's
And
how they
I
decided to do a
actually
united
like
front.
each other. It seems like they like each other.
I don't know now. Do they?
I
If
don't.
everyone is saying that Will is continuously emasculated, and we know that he has a massive trauma from his father,
Right, right.
and that he inflicted his wound and need to control on their relationship.
So, though, we talked about like, I think this is like her needing to come out, right? Like, this is her needing her back, her identity back.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember in what, I was reading one of the articles yesterday, and they were talking about comments that he made at one point in time. Oh, in one of their anniversary posts, he talked a lot about like learning how to love her in a way that allowed her to flourish as herself and not
Mm-hmm.
the collective. And so a lot of this has got to be about being in the shadows of him, of others, and all of that. And maybe emasculate is not the right word. Like, I don't know. Just,
I mean, I'm just curious. I don't know
if
if it's a
he's not
cultural
embarrassed, I
difference.
guess
Is
we
it
can't be
a,
embarrassed for it.
but like, I don't know if it's like black and white. Is it like a cultural difference in what is emasculating for a man and what isn't? Like, I don't know. I'm not a man. I don't have a penis. So
I'm not a
I
man,
don't know. I don't
but
know.
if I were a man, as a woman with a lot of masculine energy, if I were a man, if I were anyone, and the person who I wake up every day saying I am in a relationship with is not only having a separate relationship that the world seems to know about, but then finds it appropriate to have an open dialogue on their platform about that relationship, and then subsequently bring me on to break down in tears, I ain't doing that. That's just not something I'm gonna do. And like, I've been in
Yeah.
situations that were embarrassing as it relates to a partner being with someone else. And the second I find out, I was like, this, I'm done with it. There's no conversation that we need to have. And I certainly don't need to go publicize it to like all of my friends and family and millions of other people. Like, that's just
Didn't
not,
didn't
and
that
maybe
boy
my own
bring it
ego.
out, not her? Like, didn't he talk about the entanglement? And here's the truth again. They weren't together. So he could have just been like, whatever. Because you
But
think
then
he's
that's
been
the other thing.
celibate
It's
since
not an entanglement.
2016. There's no
If they
way.
weren't together, then it's not an entanglement. It was two people who were like, that's the whole thing. You're lying one way or the other. You either lied
Mm.
about this entanglement and the work that you were doing, to your point, or you were never in an entanglement and you lied about not about being together.
I know. I
The
want to know
entanglement's not
why.
relevant if
What's
you
the
were separated.
why? Why did that young man come out and say it now? Like then? I don't know. I don't know. There's something
But like,
there.
even if he came out with it, why did they run with it? If you were
Yeah, that's what
separated,
I mean. It's
why
like
did
this
they
whole
continue
plot.
that narrative? Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
That is.
interesting. And it's interesting in that, in like the personal sense, it's more interesting because I think there's got to be some sort of like PR business element to it, even though these people don't need any more money. It's, I think someone told me we all strive for money, power, or respect, and like you get varying levels of that, but some people it's not about the money, it's about the power, or it's about the respect, or it's about the
Yeah, both.
notoriety. uh,
Mm.
that's why
Yep.
a lot of really wealthy people, their egos won't let them sit down.
Yeah, I do.
Their egos won't let them stop.
I love that. All right, that's the perfect place to end. Because that was good.